Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get started in just about 30 seconds here. Thank you all so much for attending the webinar. Okay, hello, everybody. My name is Paul Leslie with ZeroBounce. Thank you all for joining us on our exclusive webinar on the 3Ps, which is plan, purge, and preview, so you can hopefully make that fourth P, profit. We are on the cusp of the busiest commerce season. That's why the purpose of this event is to help position you in the best possible place. I'd like to announce our speakers. Brian Minick is the Chief Operating Officer at ZeroBounce. His specialty is in email deliverability. He's been featured in countless podcasts, webinars, and leading business magazines. He loves talking email and helping you succeed with your email marketing. And a little about ZeroBounce. It's an email validation, deliverability, and now email finding platform. You can see some of the well-known ZeroBounce customers, which now number more than 250,000, everyone from Amazon to Netflix and LinkedIn. I'm also elated to introduce you to Tracey Pang. Tracey is the email marketing manager at Litmus. Her specialty is in user journeys and using data and best practices to guide the email creation process. Tracey has been running highly successful email campaigns at Litmus, and she'll share some of her best tactics to help you do the same at your company. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Litmus. Litmus is an all-in-one marketing platform that allows you to build, personalize, test, protect, review, and analyze your emails. Litmus is used by more than 700,000 marketing professionals, including many internationally famous brands like GE, Tesla, Marriott. Before we begin, feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar in the chat. Brian and Tracey will answer them at the end. And also keep in mind that we'll be sharing both the slides and the recorded webinar for your reference. And with that, I'll hand things over to the speakers. Here is Brian and Tracey.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. Really excited and glad to have Tracey on with us as well. So we're going to talk about a few things today. We'll go through some tips and tricks and some different things that will help you be successful with your email marketing. And I'm just going to kind of start it off. Let's kick things off easy and kind of talk about why email marketing is worth it. The revenue estimated for 2023 through email marketing is $11 billion this year. We have some nice stats here from Litmus and also with ZeroBounce. A lot of the emails that people are sending are transactional and making people make a purchase. And so 50% of people are buying from marketing emails at least once per month. That's coming from a Litmus source. We have done some studies as well. 89% of people are saying that they are checking their email every single day. And 87% of email marketing leaders saying email is absolutely critical to their success. And so Tracey, I just wanted to ask you as well, what do you think about email marketing, and have you guys had a big win you want to share?
Yeah, of course. So I really love email marketing because it creates a special relationship both between your brand and your subscriber. Because when they're subscribing to your emails, they want to hear from you. So you want to make sure you're also sending them with content or products that they want to receive. And also the cost of scaling an email program is much less compared to other marketing channels. So it seems like a pretty easy win to get it up and running and just to let it grow over time. In terms of my biggest win, at Litmus, we get to create a lot of relevant content for email marketers that helps them solve problems and it helps them optimize their email programs. So we have two content-driven newsletters, Litmus Weekly, which is our weekly newsletter, and Litmus News, which is our monthly newsletter. And our main goal is to provide useful content for email marketers who subscribe. But it's also a huge win because these newsletters drive a significant amount of conversations for our sales team because these folks are also interested in using Litmus. And it's just been really unreal for me as an email marketer to work at Litmus because I'm Litmus's target customer. I'm an email geek who strategizes, builds, and QAs emails. And it's been really rewarding to be able to build and send emails that are also helping other email marketers achieve the same goals that I am.
Awesome. Well put. And also some really cool features that we saw at Litmus Live with your new stack of tools. So awesome. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we're going to get into it. So the 3 Ps, plan, purge, and preview, and we're going to get some higher email ROI. That's the goal and the expected outcomes for you guys today. So step 1 is going to be on the plan side, right? So we're talking about 5 elements that we think are really important for you guys to keep in mind when you're planning your campaigns. And so number 1 is, what is the goal? It's incredibly important that you have a campaign with a goal, because everything should focus towards that goal. So whether it's conversions, signups, whatever it might be, you want to state your goal, and it should be loud and clear for everybody that's part of the project, right? And then you want to have a target audience. Who are you going to reach out to? And there's many different personas here, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. And then the content, this is obviously going to be very important. The content that you're putting in front of the audience needs to resonate with them, right? And it needs to tie into the target audience, and it needs to tie into your goal. The design, this is one piece that I always love. It's so important, and I'm so bad at it personally. And really appreciate when someone puts a really nice design to a email. And so you want your emails to look really nice, and you want to make sure that they render properly as well. And then lastly, what is your email list look like? Is it valid? Are there good contacts on it, or are there risky contacts? And you got to make sure you're checking that stuff before you send. So what we're going to do is kind of, how do we talk about some of the goals? How do we define this stuff? My opinion, and the best way that we have seen, is be very specific. Okay, state a goal, not a hope. So if you want to boost your subscribers, put a number on that, right? Make it a real metric, make it something tangible. You either hit it or you didn't. We want to boost subscribers by 5%. We want open rates to go from 15% to 20% in the next 3 months. Be specific, okay? Because if not, you don't actually know if you accomplished your goal. If you just say, I just want more subscribers, well, what's more? Is that 1 subscriber? Or what if you tripled it? You know, is that massive success? So I just really like to have some sort of baseline and benchmark that you're going towards. Be realistic. I think this is incredibly important, especially when you're trying to manage expectations, whether it's internally or potentially with a client or externally. Who can get involved? What's the timeline? What's the budget? Do we need to bring in additional resources? Be realistic with this stuff. And for the sake of every email marketer out here, try not to do it in the last second. We all know the stress that comes with that. Try to plan and get a little bit ahead of things if you can. And then measure. Measuring to us is very important. How do you know if you did something well if you didn't measure it and you're not continuously measuring it to see if it's going up or even down? And this can be a lot of different things: the open rates, the click-through rates, your deliverability, your sending reputation, all these different things. There's lots of things we can measure here. So the audience, I think this is something that, while might seem common sense, a lot of people very often skip right through it. Who you're speaking to really matters, okay? And the content and the list that you're sending to and the design might also play a big role based on the persona. So if you have cold leads, right, these are people, and so we're just kind of putting up 3 what we see as normal kind of funnels through email marketing: cold leads, or prospecting, or maybe you're sending something to your existing customers. Just those titles in bold should kind of trigger. The messaging is very different. The call to action is very different. The goals of that campaign would be very different, right? You're not going to send cold emails, some emails that are really designed for cold emailing to your existing customer base, right? That would kind of, it would not make any sense. It would not resonate. And that's how you get unsubscribes. And that's how you get market spam. So be very careful here. So kind of target who you're going to speak to and put yourself in their shoes when you start to draft the content and design and the goals. You want to think about it from their perspective. Segmentation is something that's really important as well. So this kind of goes right in hand with what I was just mentioning. You don't want to send every email that you've generated and kind of produced inside your team to every single customer. or sorry, every single person that you might have. So again, you don't want to send cold emails to existing customers, and you certainly don't want to tell cold people, cold prospects, hey, tell us how you've been enjoying the platform when they've never used your platform. So you have to segment, target the right people. And kind of the concept that I like to think about here is that doesn't mean you have to draft every single thing every single time. You can create reusable content. And as they move through those funnels, you're just changing the messaging that they're receiving. So that's something that's kind of really important. It's going to help with your sales. It's going to help with open rates. It's going to help with click-through rates. And it's going to help your sending reputation, which will get you into the inbox. Very important. If you just are wildly sending and thinking about purely quantity, you're going to get some issues here. You want to think about quality and get the right message to the right people. I want to just show you kind of an email that always somehow resonates with me. And so I get some emails from Southwest. Anytime I fly something, I always sign up for their newsletters. But I really like how they kind of think about their segmentation and personalization. I'm going to start at the very top, and it might be a little small, but on the subject, it's using my name, which I really actually wanted to highlight that because everyone talks about that's personalization. That is the most basic level of personalization. Although needed, it is not, you're not done. Okay, so we can't just say name. But look what else they're saying here. Departing Lolo fares from West Palm Beach. Guys, that's in the subject line. And we all know, Southwest did not personally message this for me. They're using programmatic tools. They're knowing where I'm located, either based on the airports I constantly fly out of, or potentially from my mailing address, or my driver's license when I had to submit it. So they're using the data that they have to really target the messages that they're sending to me. And for whatever reason, this makes me more engaged. It just really does. It makes me feel like, oh, I can actually leave the closest airport for 89 bucks. Now, if that just says want to get away with low fares, as low as $89 from Palm Beach, mentally, I'm already thinking to myself, yeah, sure, at the airport that's not near me and not where I want to travel. So this kind of adds that confirmation to people who might be on the edge. You can also see kind of at the top right of the email that they're putting how many points I have, my reward number, or whatever, and also the date. So one more little piece here, which I absolutely love, is on the reply to. All the way at the top, you can see the reply to is at ilove.southwest.com. It feels personal. It's part of their brand. It is exactly the kind of messaging that they put out there. And so just, these are little tiny pieces, but look how it all ties together to me and to Southwest. And I think it was just a really great example. I wanted to share it. And what was also interesting to me is that the reply to goes to a bounce at, which means they're knowing they need to do something with anything that replies. So I wanted to share this kind of segment and personalization that I thought was really useful. And I hope you guys kind of get some good tips out of that one.
That's awesome, Brian. And I think it's a really great segue to lead into, you want to have content that really inspires your readers. And that personalized email really met you where you were in your customer journey. So I think that was really well done. So when it comes to creating different content for your audience, you always want to make sure that it's relevant to them. So one way to generate new leads is through educational content. And this could be something like a webinar, a guide, or a checklist. And when you're doing your research, you should seek out to figure out what types of content your target audience is looking for. And when you're creating it, you want to make sure it highly aligns with what their needs are. And that way you can position your brand as a subject matter expert. And when it comes to warmer audiences, they have a better idea of what type of product or service that they're looking for. So when you're speaking to this group, you can offer them free trials, first-time user offers, or even demos. For us at Litmus, we have some onboarding email nurtures that we use for our subscribers to help them navigate our tool during their trial. And within these emails, we offer them different tips and resources based on what they should try to accomplish daily. And that way, we're helping them maximize the use of their trial. And then once you've captured your audience as customers or subscribers, it's all about retaining them. So continue serving them the content that they initially signed up for when they came to your brand. And nurture them with more newsletters, updates, or even exclusive subscriber-only offers. And by doing this, you're going to continue providing them that value that they originally came to your brand for, and they'll stay loyal to your brand. All right, so now we're going to talk about email design. So if you ever find yourself recreating specific modules from scratch, it might be time for you to evaluate your design process. One of my favorite ways to streamline this process is by using a modular email design system. And what an email design system is it's a collection of reusable components that you can use to create on-brand emails, and it'll make them more consistent and efficient throughout the process. So my team at Litmus, we did a newsletter redesign earlier this year, and it simplified our email building process because now we can refer to a library of modules and snippets to easily reuse and build our emails that way. So once we've done this, you can also speed up your production process and also minimize errors. And that's your key to working smarter and not harder. When you're developing design systems or templates, always remember to keep consistent branding because you want to make sure you're using your company's logo or similar branding that matches your site or any of your marketing channels just to create a seamless user experience for your subscribers. Another thing to make sure you have set up is your email preference center. So this is where you set expectations for your subscribers and they understand what type of content they should expect to receive from you. It'll also help prevent any surprises from once subscribers start receiving your emails. And the last thing is you'd want to create template-specific communications for every single email you send. So you can always use a go-to template for something like a product announcement, or you can use a plain text or a letter style email for something that's more of like a personal communication that comes from different team members at your company. And once your subscribers start receiving these emails pretty regularly, they'll have a little bit more of an expectation of what types of emails each are because they're getting familiarized with those templates.
It's awesome. Love when the email design just plays such a powerful role in how people look at it and how they perceive it immediately. So love it. And one of the last parts of planning is understanding your list. How healthy is your list? Have you checked to see if the emails you have on there are still good? Are there typos on there? There's a lot of different ways that people are collecting data today. And if you are, collecting data online and you have sign up forms, there's tons of typos that are happening. And there's actually just a lot of bad data that people push through to either get past your gate, get to your coupon, whatever it might be. You need to check to see what's going on with your list before you send to it. And it should really be part of your planning stage. You want to get rid of the stuff that's going to not deliver and ultimately bounce. And so we want to make sure we have a bounce rate that's under 2%. That's for every 100 emails you're sending, 2 should not bounce. Two is the maximum that should be bouncing. And really you want that to be as close to 0 as possible on a percent scale. And you want to do this on a regular basis. So you have to identify and eliminate the emails that are no longer valid, meaning there's not a recipient at the end of that email. And maybe there once was, but that doesn't mean today that that person is still at that company or still receiving email at that address. We see this a lot, and we're seeing this a ton, especially kind of what's happening with the job markets. So if you're on a B2B, or if your audience is businesses, you're going to see a higher amount of churn in that data. And consumers will see it as well. So if you're selling to consumers, your B2C, you will still see churn, but generally what we see is a little bit less as the free emails, the AOLs, the Gmails will churn less often. People stick with those. They don't really move as much with companies, but you will generally always have a mix, no matter even if you're selling to consumers, because a lot of people are using their work emails or their own domains to be kind of submitting data to you guys. So you want to pay attention and make sure you have some good clean data that you're sending to. So it's going to roll right into kind of step 2. We have to purge. We have to get rid of this bad data. Almost 25% of your list is going to go bad every single year. We see this in our own company. So we mentioned we have a significantly high amount of accounts that use ZeroBounce. And even with that, it's mainly businesses, primarily all business, maybe some one-man shops that use free email accounts, but it is mainly a B2B platform. And we see a significant amount of data is actually churning. And we have to pay attention to this stuff, guys, because what's happening is it's either going to bounce or it's going to route to somebody else. And the bounces are going to affect your sending reputation. So for those who kind of don't know, you have a score that is basically issued to you by the different ISPs, and they are using that score to determine what type of email you send. And by that, I don't really mean, is it beautiful or is it ugly? I mean, are you looked at as a spammer, or are you looked at as someone who's getting email from somebody that was expected to receive it from you? The ISP and the mail filter's job is to filter out content that they didn't think you wanted to see. That is their job. And so they are always going to fight for their audience, which is their users. So as a sender, you have to pay attention to that. You can't just blast emails and expect great results. You can't focus on quantity. You have to focus on quality. So make sure you have a good sending reputation, get rid of these bad emails, and there's some risky ones. And the higher the score that these people are issuing you, which is a breathing score, by the way, every single time you do something, it's going up or down or staying still. So make sure kind of you have to do this on a regular basis, and you have to stay in basically good graces with the different mail servers out there. And so with that, there's kind of two definitions that I hear so often, and they're commonly just bunched together, and they're very different. So email delivery versus email deliverability is a very different term. And the terminology, I'm actually very happy to see this in our industry. The terminology is moving towards deliverability. And for me, that makes me really happy because it's the right word and the right metric to be looking for. This is how many emails went into the inbox, okay? Your ESPs, we love them. We all have to use them, but they can only really tell you how many they delivered, meaning how many they, essentially got off the platform and sent. Now, did it go into the inbox, the spam folder, or was it blocked? They're not really going to tell you that. What they're going to just tell you is they sent 99.9% of your emails, and it's a really great stat. Makes people feel really good, but it's not the right stat to focus on. You want to focus on where inside of the mailbox did it actually land. So delivered does not mean delivered to inbox, and so focus on deliverability. Again, probably common sense, but I want to share some stats. Why do you care about being in the inbox? Well, the average person and the average worker is getting 121 emails. Me personally, I need a few more digits on there. It's insane the amount of emails that people are receiving. We're getting notifications now through an email. Everything is coming through email. So getting into inbox is very important, because if it's not in the inbox and it goes to the spam folder, consider it gone. That entire thing you just did was wasted. 16% of all emails being sent are going to the spam folder. Okay, that's really interesting. And what we found when we asked people is 27% of people say they're only checking their spam folder a few times a year. And the follow-up to that is usually when prompted by somebody to say, hey, can you check your spam? So if you're anything like me, I'm getting these personalized emails. Hey, Brian, does ZeroBounce need blah, blah, blah? This is my spam folder. Everything like this is on my spam folder. They're not checking the list. They're not making sure, and they're not kind of paying good attention to the details of the types of emails that might be in your list. So you have to make sure they're deliverable. They have to get into an inbox. Spam folder is just a giant waste of time for you. Reasons why you might go into a spam folder versus an inbox. There's a lot of different emails out there. So the types of emails on your list, which by the way, if you just did a quick browse and you scroll through your list, almost every single one of these categories that I'm going to quickly go over, you would not notice. Okay, so an abuse email, this is somebody that is known to mark you as spam. We have data on it. We know that if you send them a cold email or you sent them emails that they were not intending to receive, they're going to mark you as spam. It's very bad for your sending reputation. That hits you as a negative score, what I was talking about earlier. And so negative scores on your sending reputation are going to trigger more and more likelihood to get into the spam folder. You want to make sure you're not doing any cold emailing to those people. But if they did opt in, at least hey, I'm going to send them the content that they signed up for. So that's really important. Disposable emails. This is another kind of email that literally blew my mind when I figured it out and got access and saw this a couple of years ago, really digging into the details here. These emails are created to self-destruct, okay? They are burner emails. There's websites out there. I hate to plug them. You can just Google temporary email. You will find something out there. It has a working inbox and can send. And I didn't do anything. They don't know who I am. It generated a fake name with a domain. And if you try to use that on your gated content and with a code or click here to confirm, all of that, they can get right through it and make sure that they kind of avoid giving you their real email. So there's cases here where that makes sense. And maybe you want to accept a donation from somebody like that, but you might not want to, you do not want to then move that into your marketing list. It's going to immediately bounce because as soon as they leave that browser tab, the email address is gone. So there's no marketing value to an email like this. This is not somebody you want to send to. We also have role-based emails. These are emails that will have generally very low engagement and the potential for very high spam complaints. Role-based is going to be the info at, support at, sales at, hello at. These generally might go to groups of people. And so we have to think on how does that work, right? So if I send one email to info at somebody, and that then triggers to 6 different people. And to be honest, depending upon who you work for, 6 could be a very low number. This could go to hundreds of people. And if you send one email and get 50 spam complaints on that one send, that's terrible for your sending reputation. Okay, you have to be careful with these. Now, there are people who actually do use that as their real email, and I hate it because it makes it very confusing what to do with it. But be careful is really kind of what I'm saying here. You have to understand that these have risk with them, and I would recommend at least segmenting them off, checking who engages with them, and then maybe moving them back into your list. So just be careful with them. Catch-all emails are something they're very prone to bouncing. These are emails that would be set up by generally a business domain. And what they are is they'll accept any email sent. So I can make up a name, Johnny at, Tim at, it doesn't matter. The mail server will at least look at it. And then the rules of the mail admin, whoever set up that configuration, will determine what will happen. So it's either going to bounce, or it's going to route to somebody else, or it's going to go to the actual correct person. The point here is they're risky. You've got to be careful with them. And lastly, the worst are spam traps. Okay. These were created to block spammers. They're terrible for your reputation. And you will not notice, if you look at the actual email, you will never know that it was a spam trap. These emails were created by the different ISPs and the mail filters, and they were put onto websites for the scrapers and the bots to come and grab them, put them on a list, and sell you that list. They were designed for this. You guys have to be incredibly careful. Do not buy data. Do not buy lists. They are full of this type of information, these spam traps, and it can cause you a lot of issues. So yes, it sounds great. I will be the first one to tell you it's crossed my mind hundreds of times, but every single time you have to go back and remember that data has been repackaged, resold, relabeled hundreds of times, thousands of times. And it's even to a point now where the ESPs are catching it when you upload the list. They're going, no, I've seen this list before. And they'll even start to block you. So you got to be really careful here. You don't want spam traps. They're going to immediately blacklist you and just tarnish your reputation. They can't be on your list. You got to get them off. So if it's been more than 3 months since you've cleaned your list, it's time to do it again. So it might seem like, wow, I just did this last quarter. Guys, we're seeing, again, 25% of churn over a year. So we're talking about what, 6, 7%, 5% that might have churned in 3 months. It's going to get you a higher bounce rate than you need, and it's going to get you potentially into trouble. So you got to be careful. You also want to make sure that your spam complaints are low. 0.1% is the acceptable amount. 1 out of 1,000. Okay. So if the guy's doing cold emailing and they're wondering why they're not getting into inbox anymore, this is your reason. People are marking you as spam. Do not add emails to lists that have not been validated. We recommend you validate it first, then move them into a potential bucket or category that really is your segment. So make sure you clean your data. Just a quick story about Bruce here at Image Source. He was collecting data over a long period of time. He was building this list. And he decided, I got to get into email marketing. I have all this data. He went through, sent an email campaign. He had, to his defense, he just did what the normal person does. I have a list. I brought it to my mail server and I sent to it. Got a 90% bounce rate. The ESP was incredibly upset. Sent them to us, and he came back to us. We ran through his list, cleaned it up, and then he was able to start sending again with a very low bounce rate. So it's really important. If sounds like you, please, you have to do something about it. Don't just sit there and say, oh, well, my ESP suppressed those 19% of emails that bounced. That's not how it works. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see numbers that high, and they're not going to like it. So be careful with the data that's on your list.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So now we're at the final stage, which is preview. So after you've built your email and then planned the strategy for it and purged your list, now you can finally finalize your email and get it ready for deployment. So these steps are very crucial because you want to make sure that all of your hard work leading up to this point pays off and your emails will send flawlessly. So this is an example of what it can look like during the preview stage. So after you've built your email, you want to test in QA, make any revisions, and then test and QA it again, and then do any final checks before you hit send. So when it comes to QA, I always like to think of it as a collaborative team effort. It's always important to double check your work as you go, but because you've been working on it for so long, you risk glossing over something because you've been so close to it. So when it comes to documenting your QA process, it's very helpful because it'll help you stay consistent and you can refer to it as a historical reference later on. It's also important to keep all of your feedback in one spot. So that can be a checklist or some sort of central document that holds all of your edits. Recently at Litmus, we actually started looping in folks outside of our email team. And these were our designers and our content marketers because we wanted them to also be involved in QA just so we can get fresh eyes on our emails. And after we made that change, it was incredible because they were catching new issues that I hadn't even thought about before. And it was helpful because these were probably areas that our subscribers also might have been confused by. So I highly recommend getting other folks involved who are outside of email because it can also help your process. Another important thing is to try your best to loop folks in towards the beginning of your QA because it'll help catch any significant errors early on. And that way, when it comes towards the end of the process, it's mostly just for final checks and you're not going back and making any huge revisions. I know I spent a lot of time saying that QA should be collaborative, but I know that's not always possible for smaller teams. So in that case, if you can at least get one additional person involved to review your email before you send, it'll make a huge difference. And if you're a solo email marketer, I suggest at least taking a short break after you've built your email before you hop back to QA, just so you can reset your perspective. So we've all been there with broken or incorrect links. And remember to always check your links before you send, just to avoid any confusion for your subscribers. So when I'm reviewing an email, I click everywhere. And I'm clicking the logo, the headlines, images, or even the CTA buttons. And when I'm working my way down, I'm also checking all my links in the footer. So that's the preference center, the unsubscribe, or the privacy policy links too. Because it would be a huge no from your subscribers if you didn't have a functioning unsubscribe link. And when you're checking these links, you also want to pay attention to your link tracking to see if it's functioning. So this way it'll prevent any errors from happening when you're pulling reporting and you realize your link tracking didn't work. It's also a great time for you to double check that the link strategy that you were using in your email still matches the content. So when you're referencing the landing page and your email, make sure all of the dates or the verbiage matches up. Otherwise, you may want to go back and either update your landing page or email to make sure it's still consistent. All right, so next, you want to check how all of your emails are rendering across different email clients because broken emails break trust, and you don't want your subscribers to have a poor experience when they're viewing your emails. To do this, you want to evaluate which email clients are frequently being used by your audience. So for example, let's say that less than 1% of your subscribers use Outlook 2013, then you might not have to worry about that client as much. And instead, you can put more emphasis on other clients that most of your audiences use across desktop, mobile, and webmail. What I really love about Litmus is we can set up our most used email clients list during our inbox previews. And this list is all based on our audience usage. So that way we can really focus on the majority of our audience clients when we're building these emails. Something to also keep in mind is email client updates can happen as short as every 1.2 days. So it's really important to test regularly and to ensure your emails aren't being impacted by any rendering changes. You also want to keep an eye out for dark mode previews. So when it comes to dark mode rendering, you want to make sure you have any proper fallbacks in place, such as dark mode friendly images in case those colors invert when you're viewing from the inbox. And lastly, always remember to send a test from your ESP because there's chances that your HTML could get changed from when you first started building your email. So you want to make sure that the rendering is still what you expected. All right, up next is email accessibility. And email accessibility is a huge part of delivering an inclusive and accessible email experience. To do this, you'll want to include any descriptive alt text on all of your images. And this is even helpful for those times when your email images don't load in your inbox. So it's definitely multi-purpose. My favorite way to craft alt text is to pretend like I'm describing the image to someone over the phone. And if I feel like the alt text was descriptive enough and I can get the full picture if I wasn't viewing the image, then I know I've crafted a pretty successful alt text. After you've done that, you want to run your email through a screen reader. And this is another opportunity for you to see whether your alt text is providing enough detail, and it would make sense to anyone who's listening to the email instead. And you might also realize during this stage that you may need to add any ARIA hidden elements to your email. And what these elements do is they hide any non-interactive content. So some good examples would be emojis or repeated text in your email, because they wouldn't provide too much value to a screen reader, so it could be omitted from being read. Once you have your HTML email created, make sure to also create a plain text version that has the exact same information. And the last thing you'll want to look out for is color contrast. So make sure that all of your text and background colors and images are easily distinguishable when you're viewing the email. So I think I've covered most of the major areas to look out for in the preview stage, but these are other miscellaneous items that I would also look out for. So while you're reviewing your inbox previews across the email clients, you'll also want to look out for any broken or blurry images or even broken code that might show up. If so, then you would go back and swap out those images or make sure everything is still rendering properly. Then I would give my email another proofread just to double check that the entire email still makes sense and it doesn't have any typos. And then if you're using personalization, remember to test and validate your data. And I can't stress this enough, just because you want to make sure you're not sending an email that says something like hi first name or has a broken personalized image. So make sure you're testing this and create any fallbacks just in case the personalization doesn't work. Because folks will always remember when you have poor personalization, because it'll just look like an oops to them. So you want to avoid that. The next thing is to be mindful of your email size and your load speed. So a good rule of thumb is to keep your email size below 102 kilobytes, and that way it won't clip in Gmail. In terms of load speed, usually keep it below 1 second if possible. Something we do at Litmus is we keep all of our GIFs below 1 megabyte, and that way we ensure that all of our emails load pretty quickly. And always double check your audience before you send, just to make sure that your email segmentation still matches what you had originally planned for, and you're not undersending or oversending, or the filters are still correct. So we've covered a lot of areas to monitor during the preview stage, and it would be almost impossible to remember all of those things each time. So the best way to ensure you're queuing your emails consistently is to create a pre-send checklist with all of these steps included. I'm sure there's a lot of nuances in your email QA process, so be sure to capture those and add any standard items that you want to check for each time. I really wish I could say that send time anxiety goes away with time, but at least if you have a pre-send checklist, it'll for sure help you catch errors faster and make the process a lot smoother. And then after you've gone through your QA process a few times, go back and audit your workflow. And then ask yourself if there's anything else that you usually check for, but it's not part of your checklist. And if there are, then you probably want to add those in, and then just continue to keep iterating your checklist. And now we get to the fun part. After you've completed QA and made all your revisions, then you can hit send. And after your email is fully deployed, make sure you're monitoring your deliverability rate to see if there's anything that could be modified for your email for next time. So maybe there was email copy, or it was potentially the sender name that you were using that could have impacted your deliverability. Go back and monitor those things and make sure it doesn't happen again if possible. And then even though you've followed a pre-send checklist, sometimes mistakes do happen, and that's okay. Just remember to add that to your pre-send checklist, and then you can prevent it from happening next time.
All right, some great information there. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have some time for some questions here. And this one, I think this is something that's on everybody's mind these days. This is from Mohammed. He asks, what are your thoughts on AI-generated email content? Who'd like to take that first?
I'm happy to take that one. So I think right now we're seeing a lot of AI in email, and I do think it's great to a certain extent. I think you can use it as a thought starter. So if you're trying to craft your subject line, preview text, or maybe body copy and CTAs, but I don't think you generate it and then you hit send. I think it does take some iterating, and something that AI lacks is adding your brand voice or empathy. So it might be good as a starting point, but you always want to go back and modify it to make it sound more like your brand, because users can definitely read if it's AI generated. It might just sound a little choppy sometimes. So it's good to go back and modify.
So this one comes from Kenny Caldwell. He wants to know, how do you get your leadership team on board with segmentation? So I'm guessing maybe the leadership team is trepidatious.
Yeah, I can probably hop on this one. So Kenny, it's a really good question, actually, and thanks for mentioning it, because maybe we'll put more content about this too. Leadership buy-in is important, and generally you have to get buy-in if it's going to require a lot of people. Is most likely what I think you're talking about. What you might be able to do if you're not getting kind of the resources to help you is try to take a segment that you can pull quickly on your own and just run a test on it. Now, if that's okay, and they're not going to, let you go because of that, but you can show what might happen. So show the result and try to take the result to say, hey, do I need to show you more? Look at my open rates. I'm at 35% now, and we're generally at 12%. I mean, that's a significant kind of number that I would focus on. I would focus on how can I get like a really small win quickly, and maybe it's just a little sample, and see if you can take that to the leadership team and say, guys, I need to help actually automate these segments, and here's the buckets I want, and I need the dev team to work through and help me push this data in. Again, I'm kind of assuming, but this is what I've experienced, is we all want to segment, but the dev team is just always too busy, right? They don't want to help you and get behind you. And so that's generally a way you can kind of prove your case, is get a small segment, something you can manage, and run a test on it, and do your best to nail it. Absolutely try to nail it so you can bring that good stat back.
This one came from Aaron Spencer, and this is a question I have seen a lot of people ask. The promotions folder in Gmail, is that considered the inbox? Is there a way to keep your emails out of that folder so your campaign is front and center? Good question, Aaron.
It's a great question. Tracey, I don't know if do you have stuff on this, or you want to go for it?
I could take this one.
Sure.
So I think this is something that I see a debate go back and forth on. It's okay to end up in the promos folder just because it's a little bit more focused. And I know Google does have an algorithm just to determine where your email lands in there. And it's up to the subscriber to move your email over to their main inbox if they want. But I think it's okay just because if someone's looking to buy or wants to scroll and see what's come from your brand, they're going to go to that folder instead of forcing them to move it to their inbox. It might disrupt other parts of their inbox when they're not expecting to see product promotions or things like that. So I like to think that it's okay as long as you're some sort of like e-commerce brand, just because you'll get more focused buyers that way.
Interesting. So I think we have time for maybe one more. This one comes from Celicia Cavalcante. What are the recommendations to guarantee the open rate with iOS policy?
Interesting one. So I think with everything Apple, it's a secret. And so to guarantee, I think we have to get that out. I don't think that's a possibility to guarantee something. But when you're talking about with open rates, send content that's relevant. The subject line matters on open rates. It is significantly a big part of open rates. You have to make sure that the subject line is going to kind of trigger an open, right? And so it's really hard to guide you here. I think it could be situational. It could be the type of content you're sending, but iOS wants to see, and Apple, they all want to see high engagement. That's their job too when they're working through their spam filter. So I don't know, Tracey, if you have anything you want to add to that.
I'm guessing you're talking about Apple Mail privacy protection. And I think with this, I've kind of moved away from referencing open rates as much. It's still a good metric just to determine that your email went out okay and you don't have any deliverability errors. But I think it's better to put more emphasis on other metrics now. So like click-through rates, conversion rate, and monitoring your bounce rate and unsubs as always. But kind of like what Brian said, I think as long as you're sending highly engaged content, you'll see your other metrics also follow suit. So your click-through rates will go up just as long as you're getting folks to open your email.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I know we were going to say that was the last one. I want to take one more because I see a theme. I'm seeing it from, I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced your name properly, Amki and Jenny. So there's a lot of conversation happening around, and the questions are about how to get out of the spam folder, particularly with cold emails. And so I will tell you that this is a challenge, guys. This is not something that's easy. They are technically doing a lot of their job. And so we have to, instead of fight against it, understand kind of why that might be happening. So number one, my recommendation is you absolutely, without a doubt, need to clean the email list that you are kind of acquiring that data from. So when you're doing a search on any of these large platforms, I'm not going to name any, where you can kind of segment and put, businesses of this size and this location, build your targets, and they give you the email addresses that are coming out of that. I don't care who's giving you this information. They're all going to tell you it's verified. And I'm here to tell you the person who actually does the verifications, you don't know the last time they did that verification. You don't know if it's recent. That could be 2 years ago. They might not have done it any sort of actual way. You have to bring that data into an unbiased third-party platform that's going to scan it and get rid of the bad data out of there. And even with that, that's not enough. So what I would recommend, and we have cold emailers that come to ZeroBounce, they're getting this data and they want to know what to do with it. My recommendation is run it through ZeroBounce. Only use the valid emails that we're going to say are good. Do not use anything else. And then we have a feature called activity data, which is an appendable data point that will tell you if we've seen activity on that email in the last 30, 60, 90, 180 days. And so what I would do is take that data that you have. We're going to shave a lot of emails off of that, by the way. And you're going to have just valid and I would only send to people that we have known activity under 90 days. This is going to help you get out of, the spam folder is going to happen because you're sending to a lot of bounces too. So you have to get those out. And then secondly, if people are marking your emails as spam, you have to do something with them. I constantly see it. People are sending me emails. I mark them as spam. The next day I get a follow-up. Hey, just checking to see you got my email. Spam. 3 days later, my last one, I'm just sending it. Spam. Guys, there's a feedback loop that's taking place. You are getting notification that these people are marking you as spam. You're just maybe not doing anything with it. You have to stop sending email to those people because it's killing your reputation. That's what's putting you in the spam folder. So segment and come to ZeroBounce, come talk to us. We can help you and guide you a little bit. But I just want you to understand this is a challenge and this is not easy. And you're always going to have some struggles here with cold emailing.
All right.
All right. So we have an offer for you today just for a thanks for attending our webinar. But Litmus is an all-in-one marketing tool that allows you to create, personalized, test, review, and analyze your emails. And with Litmus, you can accomplish everything that I chatted about during the preview process because it's the same tool that we use to make our email workflow move so smoothly, and we get our emails out the door quicker and error-free. So you can sign up for a Litmus Plus plan at half the price at $99 a month, and you'll also get a free 7-day trial at the start of it.
Nice. And also with ZeroBounce, if anyone has not validated before, or even if you're kind of an existing customer, no problem. Thank you guys all for joining the webinar today. We're giving everyone 1,000 free validations. Just reach out to our support team. You can do it through email or go on our live chat. We have it on the bottom right of the website. Just let them know you came from the Litmus ZeroBounce webinar, and we'll go ahead and add the validations to your account. So I do want to thank everyone for joining today. And Tracey, thank you so much for joining with us today and kind of sharing a lot of your great wisdom and knowledge with the audience.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Don't hesitate to get in contact.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.